Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel SkillUp Tutorials, one lesson at a time. In today's video, I am going to explain about functions. Now let's see. Functions are reusable blocks of code that help organize and simplify your program. I will explain this with an example. For example, I have a 100-line code and I want to print, let's say, SkillUp tutorials after every 10 lines. Then what happens? I need to write the line in 10 times. So it may be difficult. Okay, but we can write. And for example, let us take 1000 lines code, 10,000 lines code we can't even write. Will be very difficult to do like this. Instead of doing like this, we can use functions and we can write the statement inside the function so that we can call any number of times according to our requirements. And as you can see here, instead of repeating code, we define a function and call it when we need it. Okay. And function can be declared by using function keyword. And now let's see the syntax. This is the keyword which we are using function and we need to name it like any name you can give as your requirement. These are the parameters. This is the function name. These are parentheses. Inside the parentheses, these we called as parameters. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Function parameters are listed inside the parentheses in the function definition. Let me show you. This is called function definition and the values added inside the parentheses are known as parameters. For example, if I try to send a values from anywhere, then those values will be called as arguments and this is called parameters. And if we go further, you can understand it more. And inside the function, these are known as parameters and arguments. And what is meant by return statement? For example, here we can define function in two ways, that is with using return function and without using return function. For example, if we don't use return function, we no need to return any value from that function. If we use any return function, then we need to return any value that the compiler will understands that this is the end of the function so that it will stop execution from there itself and this, it will return to after the return statement it will return any value to the caller function. Now let's see what is meant by caller and what is meant by caller function. Caller. Caller function means who calls this function is called the caller function. Caller function means the function which is being called is called caller function. When we go to execution, you understand it more. Now let's go to the execution. Okay, now let's take for example, I will take as new file. It's just an example. And here I am not taking any parameters. If we write any values here, we call it as parameters. Now I am just displaying console.log of SkillUp tutorials. Now let's execute this and see this. Now let's save it and execute this. Before you need to do one thing. Here I am not calling any value. So here first you need to call the function so that it will be executed. As you can see here before, I did not call it this function. So this function executed successfully, but we don't get any value. We need to call this function, then only it will be executed. We will get the values. Here you can see SkillUp tutorials is printed. If you want, you can also send the values. This is called, here we have four types of declaring functions. This is first one, without arguments and without return value. We call it as like this because we are not sending any arguments. If we send the values here, they call it as arguments. If we receive the values from here, they call it as parameters. Here we are not sending any values, so we said without arguments, and here we are not returning any values. We call it like this. And the next type is without arguments and with return statement. There will be four types. Okay, now let's see function. Let's take n fun, and now let's without argument we need to return like return 10. You can write anything here. I am not sending any values. Okay, n fun. Here this function is returning some value, so that we need to take this value. So we need to take like let k equal to n fun now. And let's print this console dot log of k. Now let's save it and execute it. As you can see here, this value is printed. Okay, this is the second type. Now let's go to the third type. With arguments and without return value. Now let's see. We need to send some arguments, but we don't need to return any value. Function NAW fun. As you can observe here, I am taking different names. And now this is with arguments. We need to receive some arguments like A comma B. Here you don't need to specify any data type. Now let's do it. And here we don't need to return. I will just print console.log of A plus B. I'm just printing this sum. Okay. Here I need to mention function. Okay, spelling mistake. And now I will call this. So I am not returning any value. So I am not declaring anything. New fun. Yes, that's it. Save it and run it. Sorry, I need to send some values, right? Save it and run it. Here you can see these are called arguments. These are called parameters. Okay, I'm not returning any value, but I am printing them. Okay, now let's see with arguments and with return value. Okay, now let's declare the function some fun. Let's take fun, and I need to take arguments. I need to return them like a plus a comma b comma. See, I am here. I am taking three values, and I will return a plus b minus c. Anything you can write, any expression you can do, and you can return expressions also. Okay. Now this will return some value. Let h equal to what's the function? Fun dot. You need to send arguments 1 comma 3 comma 2. Then what is the difference? 1 plus 3, 4 minus 2, 2. Okay, now let's see what happens. And here you need to print it because it's not printing, it's just sending the values. Okay, now let's print the h value. Okay, now let's save it and run it. As you can see, this is sending the value to value. Okay, these are the four types. Now let's see it again. Without arguments and without return value. Without arguments and without return. Without arguments and with the return value. With arguments and without return. With arguments and with return value. These are the four types of functions. Okay, now let's go to the difference between caller function and called function. we call it as caller because it is calling the function. So we call it as caller function. This function is called because this is the caller function and this caller this fun function. So this is called caller function and this is called caller function. Okay, now let's go to the anonymous function. What does anonymous means? We don't know. That means a function without having any name. Okay. Now let's say let's take const some. I need to send greetings equal to function of, and as you can observe here, I did not mention any name. After writing function keyword, we write the function name, but here we are not using any function names. And now let's print some value, something like console.log of. I'm just writing hello. Okay, this is how we can declare the function. And now let's call it greetings. Save it and run it. Now let's see what happens. Here you can see hello is printed. That means anonymous means a function that doesn't have any name. We can declare like this and we can define like this and we can execute like this. And now let's go to the arrow functions. We also have one special function that is here we are declaring function like this, but instead of doing like this in simpler way, we can also declare the function by using arrow. Now let's see. Now let's take const add equal to just like a comma b, and here I am using these arrows and now I will add it, and now let's print it console dot log of add of 5 plus 5. Like this, we can declare the function. As you can see here, arrow function. Here we do not write the function keyword and function name also, but we are storing it in a variable. Here we this variable will act as function name also. As you can see here, I am using add, and these are the parameters used in the function, and this is the content present in the inside the function like this. This is what we can write here, and after this will be returned to the caller function which has been called. This console.log called this function and a plus b was executed and the return value will send here and the value is printed here. 10 will comes here and 10 will be printed. Now let's save it and run it so that you will get how this happened. Yeah, something happened. Here I need to mention common. Okay, now let's try. Yeah, as you can see here, 5 comma 5 was sent to this and 10 was printed like this. Like this, we can do the arrow function. Here we are using arrow like equal to and right arrow. Okay. And we also have one more thing to say, that is default parameters. That means in sometimes I will send value, in sometimes I don't send the value. Then what happens? We will get an error. So to avoid errors, we can do like this, like function name. I'm just taking like this. And let's take name equal to John. I will explain after executing this console dot log of name. And here let's take, I will call this names of Priya and names of, that's it. Here as you can see, here I declared a parameter like name. That means it is expecting any value. So I'm sending Priya here. Here I forgot to send or I don't send anything. So what happens in real time? It will get an error. To avoid error, we are mentioning the default value. If the caller function don't send any value, then this default function will be activated and this value will be executed. Okay. Now let's save it and run it. As you can see here, I sent Priya value, so Priya was printed. Here I did not send any value, so John was printed. Okay, now let's see nested functions. Let me close this. Let's cursor. Okay, okay. Nested functions. Now let's see. Okay, let's declare a function called outer, and now let's declare a function called inner function. This is the outer function and this is the inner function. Now let's see. How can we write here? Now let's say console.log of I am outer function. And here let's write console.log of I am inner function. Okay. Now let's call this outer function. And here from here, this is also outer function only. Only this part is like curly braces opening and ending is the inner function. And remaining all comes under outer function. Now let's call inner function so that it will be executed. Okay, I'm calling from here outer function. Now let's see. As you can see, first, okay, let me scroll down this so that, yeah. Now let's see here. First, outer function, I called outer function. So we come inside the outer function. And then what is the first one? Console.log of I am outer function. This was executed. This will not be executed because we did not call it. After this, what is there? This one. When we call this inner, then inner function will be executed. Like this, we got these answers. And now let's see the scope of the variables. For example, let x equal to 10. I declared a variable here. And I will declare let y equal to 20. Now I will print console.log of x plus y. That means as you can see here, this is local variable to inner function and this is local variable to outer function. And we can access this outer function local variable in the inner function also. But now let's see up to here so that you will understand. Okay. Now let's see the execution. As you can see here, 30 was printed. So here you need to understand one thing. X is accessible inside this. But now let me show. This is the I am in the outer function zone and I can access X because I am in the outer zone. But you cannot access Y value because you are out of the function. So I will try to show you that how you will get an error. Now let me try to print Y. Now let's see we will get an error. As you can see here, Y is not defined because here this is the outer scope. This is the inner scope. We don't, the outer scope values will not be having access for the inner scope. So this point you need to note down. Okay. This is the end of the video. I hope you understand. If you have any queries, please comment below. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.